Well, here we are. It is 30 minutes gone past 7 o'clock, and this is Smooth Breakfast. And for the next half hour, it is freshly pressed on Smooth Breakfast. I'm Shukma Martins, and joining me in the studio for analysis of the topical news stories we've got in Nigeria is Mr. C. Good morning. How you doing?
Good morning, Shopper. Good morning, Lagos.
Great to have you in the studio with me. All right, so we've got a number of. Oh my goodness, Mr. C, I don't know what to make of these stories for today. They've engendered a lot of feelings in me, and I'd love to know what your take is on these stories. So make sure you send your WhatsApp messages in to 0809 440 981. You can use the hashtag freshlypressed981 on Twitter, and we are streaming live on youtube.com/smooth981 FM Lagos. So make sure you leave your comments up there to join the conversation via that platform. All right, so we'll start off with news in from the Premium Times, and this was very big story from yesterday. A Kebbi deputy governor escapes death as bandits kill 19 security agents. Now this is 2 days after well, no, terrorists killed 63 volunteer vigilante members on Sunday morning. On Tuesday, again, they reportedly killed 19 security agents who were part of Kebbi State Deputy Governor Samaila Yombe's entourage. Now, this happened in Kenya, in Dangu Wasagu local government area of the state. And according to an eyewitness account, this person said that's the bandits, overpowered the security agents present because they fought from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. The deputy governor was miraculously saved while his security details were trying to repel the attack. If not because of the soldiers that came, the bandits would have overrun the village and killed the deputy governor. Mr. C, I mean, to may their souls rest in peace, the souls of the deceased. The irony of this story coming is that the deputy governor was in that area precisely because of the issue of banditry, of bandit attacks, and this particular zone sharing boundaries with Niger State, which is now one of the worst hit states by these attacks. What would you say about this?
Okay, thank you, Shopper. And like you rightly said, our thoughts go out to the families of those who have been lost in these attacks, both the local vigilantes and the security men. Now, it's no secret, and we've been discussing this for at least the last 2 or 3 years here on this show, that the continued and persistent attacks by armed, violent men, either called bandits, terrorists, or known gunmen, has continued unabated. And 2 days ago, they killed 63 individuals. Whilst we're still coming to terms with that, they had the boldness, they had the audacity to attack the deputy state governor who was sent by the governor of that state to meet with the locals who were complaining about the persistence of the attacks. And it is frightening to hear that they engaged the security team of the deputy governor for 3 hours, for at least 3 hours, and overpowered them, killing 19 of them in the process. And they were rescued by soldiers who showed up. And kudos to the soldiers that, even though they couldn't prevent the death of the security operatives, at least they rescued the deputy governor.
And they were able to then repel the attack.
Yes, but it speaks to the way we've been treating these bandits with kid gloves.
Thank you. Now that was exactly what I was going to ask you. Have we come to the point whereby, through not dealing directly with this issue, is it now too late? Are we seeing a rise of another, well, not Boko Haram, but another threat on that scale?
So there's a school of thoughts that says these bandits, these kidnappers, these abductors are like the commercial trading arm of Boko Haram, because from the activities they raise money through ransoms, huge ransoms. With those ransoms, they buy better
Oh, by
weapons.
the way, not to mention the protection money that they're charging the
Yes. So
villagers.
they're running a racket. So they're filling the space left by legitimate state actors who, for whatever reason, are unable to perform their functions. They're raising money, revenue, they're buying better weapons, and we've seen an episode of the use of their better weapons. So the Nigerian government, federal and state levels, has to decide what is the policy concerning these guys. Are we ceding part of Nigeria's territorial space to these guys because we're ineffective, because we're incompetent, or because we lack the stomach to do what is required? Are we here to protect all Nigerians in every part of this nation? Because ordinarily, these guys cannot and should not be bigger than the state. Now, an attack on the deputy governor, who is a symbol of the state, is something that shouldn't be tolerated. But I will also say an attack on any citizen should not be
Should,
allowed.
yes.
And it leads to another critical question: what is the value of a Nigerian life? Until we're ready to discuss that and decide what it is.
That's a question we've been grappling with for a long time.
So, when our leaders decide what the value of a Nigerian life is, maybe we'll start to take the steps required to ensure that attacks like this no longer happen with the frequency with which they happen now.
Now, Mrs. C, we heard from the Chief of Defense Staff, Lucky Arabo, a little, quite recently, and he talked about how peace is returning to troubled parts of the nation. He said that Nigerians will no longer experience heightened levels of insecurity. But when we look at something like this, where we have been seeing the progression of these terrorist acts, because yes, this is at this point what they are now. What would you say to his statements?
I would say his state, when he made that statement, I wondered what material he was looking at or relying on to arrive at that conclusion. And sadly and unfortunately, we're beginning to see that that statement wasn't entirely correct, and it's looking more hopeful by the minute.
Mm.
Now, it begs the question: how do we resolve all of this? Why are we not fully applying technology? These terrorists, these bandits, these abductors, they stay somewhere, they live somewhere. We have two satellites orbiting the Earth. Why are we not using them or getting satellites that have the abilities to pinpoint where they are? If they're in the forest, because we keep hearing they're in the forest and the foliage is very deep,
Mm.
but a satellite can pick up heat signatures from up there. And when you see a lot of heat signatures congregated in a place that human beings ordinarily should
Should
not
not be.
live there,
Hmm.
then you know it's them. So one way is to bomb the forest, smoke them out, and you have your troops waiting to pick them up. Now, two, the ones you've arrested previously, what intelligence did you get from them? What efforts are you making to get fresh intelligence? Is there a way we can preempt or prevent some of these attacks? These are questions our security agencies need to look at, and they need to go back to the drawing board.
Now, you spoke about the value of a human life, and this is something that this article from this day newspaper, the headline reading "Fuel Tanker Explodes in Lagos, Raises Petrol Station and Residential Building." That's something that this speaks to now. So let's go into the story, because this happened on Wednesday. A tanker laden with PMS Premium Motor Spirit exploded at a filling station in Mushin, and the inferno was said to have erupted at around 1 p.m. when the tanker was discharging its contents at the petrol station, and it also affected a three-story residential building. Um, Mr. C, this is something that we see again and again and again. At what point do we start to say, "Oh, okay"? When we look at issues of tankers exploding, we look at issues of buildings collapsing. These are perennial headlines that keep cropping up. What do you think needs to be done for us not to see another headline like this?
Okay, thank you, Shop. So, mercifully, from the report, no life was lost. But unfortunately, a building was razed,
I mean,
a
the no
residential
life was
building.
lost was the good part of the
Yeah,
story.
so our thoughts still go out to the families of the people who inhabited that residential building, because right now they're a bit homeless. But we hope that they find places to stay with friends and relatives. Now, Chopper, the officials, state officials that are charged with the responsibility of maintaining standards in various fields of society. Now, there are people responsible for ensuring that fuel tankers are regularly maintained, petrol stations are regularly maintained. both from the company that owns the tanker and the station, and even from the regulatory side. The big question is how much of the regulation is actually being done? Because in this harsh economy, some individuals, some companies are tempted and are more willing to cut corners because of economic considerations. Now, from the regulatory end, do they have enough officials to go around and carry out their regulatory oversight?
Mm.
Because the people they're supposed to be regulating have increased astronomically. And if you have a section that has only 20 or 25 employees who are charged with ensuring compliance with laid down rules and regulations, we don't need anyone to tell us they'll be seriously overworked. Now, how often do they schedule these compliance visits? What is the outcome of the compliance visits? Are repeat offenders punished? And if they are punished or sanctioned, how are they sanctioned? For something like this, I would expect that a follow up investigation is done
Mm.
to ascertain what happened. Is it human error? Is it a problem with receiving equipment in the station? So that something like that can be avoided, not just at that station, but elsewhere, because we need to be able to learn lessons from one point and apply it in other places.
So that the future does not look like the past.
Yes, and then more importantly, we need to also consider where we site our stations. Some stations were developed then, developments came up around them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, where that happens, it doesn't make sense to ask the station to relocate. But then, how then do we protect the residential development around petrol stations from incidents like
And
this?
of course, we have to remember that there is also the issue of infrastructure because the petroleum products that are transported they're transported due to the inadequacy of pipelines that are built specifically for the carrying of fuel. And I know that we heard from the DPR a few years ago saying that tankers that were carrying above 33,000 liters of fuel would be restricted from the road. It would be interesting to see how far they've gotten, like you said, with making sure that they implement these rules or
So,
regulations.
last point, we have a lot of rules and regulations, we have adequate laws.
Adequate.
The challenge is how do we execute them? How do we enforce them? That is a big challenge.
All right, now we've got your messages coming in, and this one from Yinka Bolu says, uh, listening to Mr. C. Oh gosh, Yinka. Let me just read his message. He says, listening to Mr. C on how to smoke them out gave me joy. Now that is how you work. He goes on to say, just bomb them and wait for them at the exits. This is me having to edit, Yinka. He goes on to say, how hard is that? And he says, on the fuel tanker explosion, please, who approves of filling stations close to densely populated areas, which is also something that you've spoken about. It could have been that the densely populated areas sprung up around the station, but yes, there is that as well. He goes on to say, there is one in my area, and I'm praying that the day the fireworks will take place, I am not around. And that's what the DPR is doing. Now, Tyre from just says town planning concerning petrol stations needs to be reviewed. We're still waiting on the reports concerning the fire incident that happened at Opic Plaza in Ikeja. There's just too many incidents of recklessness. Whilst Chris says we've been discussing the killing of innocent people every day in every part of Nigeria by criminals and bandits for several years now. He goes on saying, but where is the government, both at the federal and state levels? And the same non-performing politicians are busy talking about the 2023 elections to continue this negligence and irresponsibility. Something has to give in Nigeria if we are to progress from here. And Mary from Magodo says, why would a station be discharging PMS at 1 p.m.? According to safety standards, PMS should be discharged in the morning and evenings here in Nigeria. Oh, Mary, thank you for that. And yes, we've got more. This one in from Idima Puza, who says, while we're supposed to be enjoying the windfall in world crude oil prices, we're here making money with one hand and spending the same with the other because of money wasted on fuel subsidy. All right, let's take a look at this next article that we've got coming in from the Punch newspaper. Electoral bill: Malami and Amechi barred from primaries as Senate rejects Buhari's request. That's the Attorney General of the Federation, Abubakar Malami, the Minister of Transportation, Rotimi Amechi, the Minister of Labor and Employment, Chris Ngige, and other political appointees believed to be interested in elective office will not be able to participate in the APC primaries expected to begin in May unless they resign. This is the state of things following the rejection of the Electoral Act Amendment Bill by the Senate on Wednesday. Oh, Mr. C, this is something that, yeah, I'm really looking forward to your take on, because let's take a look at what exactly is going on. So give us your thoughts.
Okay, thank you, Shopper. Now, first things first, I'm a bit confused. When did this become an issue? Because it's always been the practice that if you're a political appointee, no, so a political appointee, for the benefit of our listeners, is anyone who's been appointed into office by an elected office holder. Now, an elected office holder is someone who's put himself or herself up for election and has been duly voted in and returned by the people and INEC as the elected official.
Mm-hmm.
So, examples of elected officers are your president, your governor, your deputy governor, your vice president, and members of the National Assembly or the state houses of assembly. Political appointees, on the other hand, are your ministers, your advisors, your personal assistants, your commissioners. Now, it has always been the practice or the convention in Nigeria that if you're a political appointee, you resign and then you put yourself up for election. All of a sudden, some people are determined to turn everything upside down and are suggesting that they be allowed to hold on to their political office, contest for the election. If they win, good. If they don't win, they fall back and continue to work as if nothing happened.
So why do you think this is becoming such a big issue now?
I'm not so we'll have to ask the people concerned. And it's interesting that the president has echoed this particular school of thought that they should be allowed to retain their offices and then contest. Now, for example, the Minister of Justice is rumored, big emphasis on rumored, to have some sort of ambition come 2023. Now, because of the nature of the office he presently occupies, it would be unfair to allow him to hold on to that office and then contest the elections. Because when there's a dispute as to the outcome of the primaries, for example, and you go to court, whether we want to admit it or not, he has some influence within the court system, within the legal system. He could possibly, and I stress the word he could possibly, it's a scenario I'm painting here, try to use his influence to get it decided in his favor. Now, how, for example, if you were contesting against Malami for the presidential elections and he remains the
Oh,
Minister of
thank you very
Justice,
much.
yes,
Mm-hmm.
do you think it's going to be a level playing field? Certainly not. Over the years, he's had access to the security agencies. He's a chief law officer of the Federation. He doesn't need to do much to muscle you out of the race. And that's not what the people want. If you're so sure that you have what it takes and the people are going to buy or sign up to the product you're offering, resign your office.
All right. And this goes back to government and governance being about checks and balances to
Correct.
make sure that we do not have overreaching of power.
Correct.
Mm.
And more importantly, if the people were more interested in the process, even if you held on to your office, when you present yourself, because at this point in time, all of them are literally coming back to us, we're begging to apply. That's what it is literally. We beg to apply to be considered for this position or that position. And at this point, we are the employers. This is the only time we will get these guys to do what we want. Because the moment they get into office, it's a completely different story.
Right. Like us to leverage your power at this
Yeah,
point.
yeah, because
Okay.
yeah. Is what it is.
All right, let's take a look at this next article. It's in from the Guardian newspaper. Why Nigeria is unable to meet OPEC quota. This, according to Chief Timipre Silva, the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, who has attributed the inability of Nigeria to meet the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries quota to a lack of investment in the oil and gas sector. What would you say to what he had to say?
Okay, thank you, Chopin. So the minister is partly correct because part of the reason is that we're not getting the required level of investment in that sector. However, he was silent on another critical issue. Every day, a significant portion of our oil production is stolen. He just generally referred to it as security challenges. That is a major reason we don't meet our OPEC quota. Now, a conservative estimate was put about 200,000 barrels every day.
And by the way, Mrs. E, can I just add why we've seen, because he talked about the speed with which international oil companies and other investors were withdrawing investments, and that goes back to what you were saying.
Yeah, so they're withdrawing the investments because they've signed up to renewable accords and agreements outside, and because they belong to international groups, they're bound by them. Again, the uncertainty surrounding the Nigerian regulatory landscape is frightening. You then toss in the insecurity bit. Nigeria is just a melting point of confusion and chaos, and they don't like that. And you must also remember, we've been having a forex challenge for at least the last 2 years.
I don't think anybody can forget. It's affecting all areas of
So
life at this point.
it's difficult getting your money out.
Mm.
So naturally, I'm surprised some of them are still here. Now, he diverted attention away from the stolen crude oil and focused on the investment. But the truth of the matter is, who's going to want to stay here and maintain production when a significant portion is stolen every day and nothing happens? You cannot have a field that produces, say, 70,000 barrels, 100,000 barrels a day, and you're losing at least 30,000 or 40,000 barrels every day. You're reporting to security agencies and nothing is happening.
All right, now we've got lots of messages coming in, so let's get to them. Do remember you can go over to youtube.com/smooth981 FM Lagos, where we are streaming live right now. Leave your comment for me to read out during the show. You can also send WhatsApp messages into 0809 440 and hashtag freshly pressed 981 on Twitter. I'm going to go over to WhatsApp now, and Ayola has sent in a message. He says it's ridiculous, really. My friend had to resign from his job to contest for local government chairman, which he didn't win. But the norm is you can't hold a job and vie for public office, at least to the best of my knowledge. Whilst Ose says the law was changed to resign before primaries instead of resign 30 days before the actual election. That's the controversy. That is actually Maurice. Maurice or Ose, two names. And we've got this one in from Emeka from Misolo, who says the justice minister without a sense of justice. Anthony A. Francis says ours is a country where politicians consider it normal to hold on to two or three political offices: president slash minister, governor slash party chairman. We have a major systemic problem. Whilst Austin from Satellite says, attack on a deputy governor, the country will soon change its name to Niger Afghan. Okay, then let's move on. We've got this one in from the Vanguard newspaper. Federal government bans foreigners from buying agricultural produce directly from farmers. So we heard from the Minister of Trade and Investment, Otumba Ni Adebayo, who explained that over the years, foreigners have been going to the farm gates directly to buy produce from the farmers at low prices, thus discouraging farmers from continuing with their trade. According to him, we finally got approval from the FEC today for only licensed local buying agents who must be registered by the relevant national commodity associations. They are the ones who will now be able to buy goods directly from the farmers and sell to the foreigners. This way, the farmers will no longer be cheated by these foreigners who just throw money at them and are able to buy their goods. See the emphasis on foreigners. But what do you say to this development, Mrs. C? Do you say, oh, good going, or do you say just another bottleneck?
Okay, Chopper, thanks. I'm looking at the story and I'm not sure what we're trying to do here. Now, insecurity has plagued agricultural production for at least the last 12 months, easily, right? So
And more.
it's not every farmer who's able to go to the farm, successfully plant, grow, and harvest ready for the market, right? Our road network is still chaotic and inadequate. So when you add the fact that we don't have good storage facilities in the country, the farmers can hold on to these produce for long periods of time. So you have foreigners who come and are ready to take it off them immediately. They buy. Now you say you don't want that. You've now introduced a middleman called a local license agent or whatever fancy designation you've chosen to give him.
Mm.
So what that happens is he will continue to buy at those low prices. When he now sells to the foreign guys, he does a markup. How does that benefit the farmer who started the whole process in the beginning? These are questions that this story doesn't explain, doesn't provide answers to. And if the aim is to help the local farmer, how much seeds, how many seeds are we giving them? What sort of support are we giving them? Why are we not thinking of having a food reserve? Yes, we keep hearing that we have grain silos and they're supposed to hold a certain quantity of grain.
Now, one thing that I would like, and of course, this is where you come in as well, because the analysis goes always right to send your messages in to the different platforms that we have. Because when I hear about the issues that are plaguing farmers, what the farmers talk about, they talk about lack of access to things like fertilizer. They talk of lack of access to things that would industrialize farming, such as tractors and whatnot. I'm not sure I've heard about foreigners coming to buy their produce at low prices. So if it's something that farmers are having an issue with, please let us know, because for me, I have not heard about this except from this story now.
So you raise a very interesting point. The major issue facing farmers is there are two major issues. One, insecurity, two, capital.
Yes, of course, insecurity.
Now, I understand that there was a financial provision for farmers, some agricultural loan scheme, right? But what some officials did in a particular state was they took their details. They were supposed to get the funds through Bank A. Guess what happened?
Oh, do I want to? Go ahead, tell us what
Their
happened.
details were used to open accounts in Bank B. And they
Right.
were getting debit alerts, debit alerts. So not only were their details used to open separate bank accounts, the money was going out. And when they raised inquiries, they were told, okay, we're going to offer you 10% of the monies that were taken in your name, and you can rest the matter.
I have no words. So let's just go on to something that you had touched on as affecting our uh, the affecting the food chain process, which is this issue of bad roads. From this day newspaper, our final story for today: bad roads, House to investigate alleged illegalities and fraud by Pharma. This is a House of Representatives at plenary yesterday resolving to set up an ad hoc committee to investigate the activities of the Federal Road Maintenance Agency between the year 2019 to date, with a view to stopping the alleged monumental fraud and illegalities in the agency. This comes as a sequel to the adoption of a motion sponsored by Minority Leader Honorable Ndudi Elumelu of PDP Delta, who alleged that corrupt practices, including high handedness by the leadership of the agency over inflation of contracts, things that we have come to really accept as a norm here. Quite sad.
So they're playing to the gallery, I'm sorry. And I'll explain why. There was a budget defense in 2019 where they came to defend their budget allocation, their proposed budgetary allocations for 2019. And during that defense, it would have been expected they would have explained what they did in 2018 concerning road performance, the quality of their work. In 2020, another budget defense. In 2021, another budget defense. In 22, another budget defense.
Right.
So if they've been showing up for all these budget defenses, what have they been telling them since. So, what is this committee now supposed to discover? Pre election shenanigans,
Okay.
playing to the gallery. Nothing is going to come out of this. And some of them, sadly, have turned out in the past to have been beneficiaries of this very thing they're complaining about.
Righty ho. Well, that's all we've got time for, people. So let me very quickly read this message in from Fabian from Ekta, who says, "I wonder why the government always tries to directly intervene in business. The farmers didn't complain about being cheated by foreigners. The government should create enabling environments for the farmers and other businesses, not worsen their situation." And going over to youtube.com/smooth981 FM Lagos, Joy Ukaha says, "How low can our country people go, stealing money from farmers? How low can we go? Of course, no one went to jail or was sued." I think that's a question mark. And goes on to say, "We are diabolical." I don't know who this "we" is, but okay. Joseph Olofinkua says, "Mrs. C, I listened to your story about the farmers. Nobody got caught for what? We need to really see the extent of evil that corrupt practices in our country have." And that is that. So do make sure you follow Mr. C for all the information he's got. He is on social media, across social media platforms, at Monsieur C. And that is three E's after that C. Okay? Mrs. C, thank you so much for joining me for today's Lagos Talks.
You're
It's
welcome.
been eye opening. And Lagos, thank you. Lagos, Nigeria, wherever you are in the world, thank you for joining me. Coming up, it is going to be the Grapevine at 8:15. The headlines. Hey, the stories. Very interesting today, which is probably why we went slightly over time, but it's okay. Freshly pressed.